Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of India's Got CLATent, hosted by NLTI, where we bring in CLAT 2026 toppers so that they can share their strategy with potential aspirants, people who are appearing for CLAT 2027, and so that you, as audience, can learn from their mistakes, from their experience, and their wisdom, and apply the same in your actual attempt. To give you an introduction about me, I am Anish Gupta. I'm currently in my final year at the National School Bangalore, and I'm also the founder of National Training Institute. NLTI is an initiative that is run exclusively by National School Bangalore students. We started off with mentorship, and now we are running a full-fledged coaching program for CLAT and ALET and NLSAT batches. Our idea is that we have cracked CLAT, and who is more equipped than us to provide you same guidance for CLAT and help you achieve what we achieved when we appeared for CLAT. And in the same pursuit, we today have Argh, who got an All India rank of 8 in CLAT 2026. Welcome to NLTI, Argh. Uh, what was
Hi.
the reaction when you got All India rank 8? Tell me more about it. I also had a chance to go through your Instagram, the batch of 31 page, where you mentioned, yes,
Right.
the actual name given by my parents. So, what is your thought on that? Let's start with that. How do you feel about getting rank 8? Was your name your actual reaction when you saw the screen? You saw the screen page.
Yeah, I think my name was my actual reaction when I saw my rank. But
Hmm.
honestly, it was pretty chill. It wasn't too dramatic because I mean, I checked my score before. I figured ki there's a very good chance that I'm going to NLS.
Hmm. Yeah.
Single digit rank आ जाएगी ये नहीं सोचा था. So yeah, of course, we were all very excited, especially since
Hmm.
my twin brother also got a single digit rank. So that
Right.
sort of adds to the excitement, the joy. And we luckily had family visiting at the time. So
Hmm.
I, more than me, I think it was my family that was excited. I was still pretty laid back, chilled out. But yeah, it
Yeah.
was a fun day. And it was a hectic day. You had
I know.
calls left and right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. For all those who didn't watch our first episode of India's Got Latin, we hosted Argh Jain, who got an all India rank of 2. And very interestingly, Parv and Argh are twin brothers, and they have both gotten single digit ranks and now will be entering National School Bangalore. So, Argh, who's the elder one, you or Parv?
I'm the elder one. Yes.
What is the time difference?
I think it's 1 minute, 1 or 2 minutes. 1 minute, I think.
So, how does it feel to be the elder one and just like six ranks behind the younger one?
I mean, it is disappointing because a lot of times people who get a single digit rank, they have their posters, right? And in those posters, there's always
Hmm.
so and so is UP ka rank one, so and so is Delhi ka
Yeah.
rank one. मैं अपने घर में
Hmm.
rank one नहीं हूँ. So that is disappointing, but then again, doesn't really matter. The
Yeah.
bottom line is both of us are getting into a dream college, and that is what
Mm,
matters.
yeah. So, Arg, tell me more about you. Who's Arg Jain beyond All India Rank 8? Tell me where you come from. Tell me about your past education. Which stream did you have? What do you like doing in your pastime? And basically, the entire things that make up Arg other than CLAT.
All right, so I come from Greater Noida. Like I've not spent all of my life in Greater Noida because my father has a transferable job. So I've been around the length and breadth of the country. I've studied in Agartala. I've lived in Kargil for a while. I've lived in
Mm,
Arunachal for a while. But I think a majority of my school going years I spent in Greater Noida. So that's where I say that I come from. I think it was back in the ninth grade when I figured that I had an interest in the humanities,
mm,
and it was during the same time that I figured that I had an intrinsic interest in law. So that's when I decided that I want to give CLAT because I want to become a lawyer. And that's when 10th grade happened, everything happened. I went on to 11th. I opted for humanities as a stream. Side by side, I would research career options in law, what I could
mm,
and could not do. And so in 11th, in April, I think, like right after my 10th boards, I took a month to relax. I enrolled, like I started my preparation. for CLAT,
Hmm.
because
Arg, I think I lost you. Hopefully, Arg will be back with us in a few seconds. Also, whoever is watching this video live, whoever is watching this session live, please, if you have any questions or doubts that you want me or Arg to answer, drop them in the comments option, the chat option that you can see on your screen, and we promise to take them up when we move to the strategy bit of the session.
uh, hello.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Hi, I am so sorry. My laptop died.
It's fine.
So
It's fine.
yeah, where was I?
You were telling me when you started your preparation for CLAT.
Right. So I joined 11th and I figured कि
Hmm.
अब मुझे पता ही है कि मुझे CLAT करना है. So I started my preparation back in 11th in
Hmm.
back in April in 2024.
So,
Right.
yeah.
And honestly 11th में मैंने ज़्यादा पढ़ा तो नहीं था, but I would give mocks pretty regularly. Like every
Hmm.
week I would sit for mocks. I gave CLAT in 11th as a dummy attempt, went pretty well. So sort of derived confidence
कितना
from
आया
that.
रैंक स्कोर कितना आया 11th में?
Score, I don't remember my exact score, 94, 95 कुछ था शायद. And my
हाँ.
rank after the Supreme Court revision and everything, it was 213th.
Hmm. Okay.
So yeah, that sort of gave me confidence. And then
Yeah.
uh yeah, stuff happened, went into 12th, थोड़ा और rigorously prepare करना शुरू किया. Obviously, I gave
Hmm.
mocks every week, but I sort of stepped up my preparation क्योंकि I knew CLAT 25 was an easy paper.
Yeah.
इसलिए वो हो गया. Sort of there's a luck factor involved when a paper is too easy, but I
Yeah.
can't have that going into 12th because that's my final attempt. I can't mess up my final attempt, so I need to cover all of my bases. So that's what I spent the entirety of 12th grade doing, covering all of my bases. And yeah, then I gave CLAT, got a
Hmm.
pretty good result, and here I am.
Right. So our last session in the last episode we heard per why he decided to do law. So is it the same time when you also decided कि ठीक है दोनों भाई हम law ही करेंगे, or was there a role of you influencing him or him influencing you in the decision that yes finally the twin brothers will go into the law field?
So if I remember correctly, I was the one who first decided that I want to do law. I think Perv
Hmm.
was still confused. He might tell
Okay.
you a different story, but this is what happened. So
Okay.
I don't know whether it was my decision that influenced him or what,
Hmm.
but I think it's more to do with the fact that both of us, since we live in the same house, we have similar friend groups, we go to the same school, we developed similar interests. So naturally, we ended up choosing the same career.
Yeah, nice. So, Arg, the theme of today's episode is rank Aaya Kaise. So, let's
Hmm.
delve into the strategy bit of your preparation. कि actually तुमने पढ़ाई कैसे की so that you ultimately ended up getting this rank. So, give us the blueprint, Arg. If someone wants to replicate All India Rank 8, what does day one look like if they're starting today?
I think with CLAT, you really need to be a well rounded person. As I said, cover all
Hmm.
your bases. Since it's a reading and comprehension heavy paper, and I think in CLAT, it's GK that
Hmm.
ends up being a deciding factor, GK and quantitative techniques mostly.
Fair.
So, first of all, for covering your comprehension bit and covering your GK, read your newspapers daily, cover to cover. So what I
Hmm.
used to do during the beginning of my prep, I would pick up either the Hindu or the Indian Express, generally the Hindu, read it cover to cover daily, and then go on, my day and do whatever. Slowly and steadily, I expanded this to two newspapers. So I would read both the Hindu and the Indian Express. And then after a point when I had nothing else to do, I started reading the Economic Times as well. So with
Hmm.
GK, your most important source, I think I say that with experience because in CLAT 26, I feel like the GK section could be cracked if you're very regular with your newspapers and if you really
Hmm.
engage with your newspapers. Because the questions that they asked you in CLAT 26, there was a
Hmm.
passage on chess while there was a chess World Cup going on in Goa. There
Yeah.
was a passage on the Air India crash, right? And there
Hmm.
was some really unexpected questions. They asked you the first world chess champion. They asked you,
Hmm.
uh, the guy who survived the crash. What was his nationality? Stuff like
Nationality.
this you
Yeah.
can right. So stuff like this you can get if you really engage with your newspapers, if you really
Yeah.
engage with your current affairs. So once you start reading your newspapers regularly, cover to cover, you'll start engaging with them, you'll start taking interest in them, and you will naturally start expanding your reading base, expanding your research area. So everything that I read in the newspaper, I'll try
Hmm.
to go beyond and look up its history. So if I see that there's a chess World Cup happening in India, I try to look up who the first Indian world chess champion was.
Hmm.
Okay, when did Vishwanathan Anand
Yeah.
win the chess champion title? When did D. Kokesh win it? Against whom did D. Kokesh win it?
Hmm.
Stuff like that. How many grandmasters we have, stuff like that.
Hmm.
So if I read about the Air India crash, if I'm reading about it regularly in the newspapers, the Hindu, the Indian Express, they reported this very extensively that the guy who survived, he was a British national of Indian origin. Case face
Hmm.
करा था उसने शायद, and his story, because he was the sole survivor. There was
Yeah.
a lot of focus on him. The spotlight was on him. So
Hmm.
read your newspapers daily and just read in general as well. Read random articles. Look up the Aeon, Quint, Print, Guardian. Watch watch YouTube. I used to watch Cut the Clutter on YouTube.
Yeah.
This is the segment hosted by Shekhar Gupta from the Print. It's a
Hmm.
really great show. So
Yeah.
do that. Engage with what's happening in the world. Read good stuff. Try to engage with classic works of literature, because CLAT generally tends to ask you passages from classic works of literature. They asked a passage
Hmm.
from Tagore last year, one from the Yuval Noah Harari book, the Sapiens, right? There was one
Hmm.
passage from Fire on the
Yeah.
Mountain back in 23. So read good books, read articles, read as much as you can,
Hmm.
and then practice mocks, practice sectionals. Just develop your comprehension as much as you can. Ensure that you're a well-rounded person. That's what helps the most in CLAT.
Right. And so this is the thing that I've heard from many toppers, and I've been seeing people, I've been mentoring people for the last 3 to 4 years, that CLAT is unlike JE or NEET. There's no fixed syllabus or any particular book that you have to complete before you perfect go write the paper. It's all about curiosity. It's all about how open your mind is, how curious you are to just read what is happening around you and to delve more into every event that has happened around you. And your answer brings me to two very important questions. So, firstly, not everyone has the time to go through two newspapers in a day, nor the bandwidth, nor the reading speed. So, if you were to suggest one newspaper, which one would it be, the Hindu or the Indian Express? That is the first question. And the second question is, uh, let's say you have identified a particular topic, chess or the Air India crash, that is relevant for CLAT. How do you go about researching it? How do you go about making notes on the topic, and which all sources will you refer to?
Okay, so as far as newspapers go, I think
Arg, I can't see
you
you.
can.
Is there any network issue?
Yeah, just give me a second. I'm fixing the net. You can hear me, right?
Yeah, I can hear you though. Yeah,
All right. So I'll just speak while my network corrects itself or whatever. So
sure.
as far as newspapers go, I think you can pick up either the Hindu or the Indian Express. They're both good newspapers. If I were to select one,
Hmm.
I think it again depends on individual choice. If you're somebody who wants to read for the sake of reading, which I would recommend, go for both. But if only one, go for the Indian Express, because there's a lot of minutiae that's covered in the Indian Express. But if you want something that's more concise, I would personally go for the Hindu. And as for sources, I think there's no one fixed source for everything. So just ensure that you don't rely too much on IES magazines or PCS magazines. Don't rely too much on stuff that gives you like 1 point, 2 point answers. Read articles and read articles from trusted sources. Just ensure that the source that you're using, it's a verified trusted source, and try to
Hmm.
ensure that it's an article rather than a list of facts. So
Yeah.
if you want to read about chess, you can find a really good article in the Hindu itself, or you can find a really good article on the Guardian, or
Hmm.
if nothing else, you can just go on Wikipedia and fall into a rabbit hole.
Yeah. Do we should we pause the session for a couple of minutes? Okay, it's fine now. I can see you.
Okay, is this fine? Yeah.
Yes, yes. Right.
All right.
So, Arg, if you were to quantify a couple of sources, which one would it be? For Wikipedia is one. General
Hmm.
Google search is two, that you go and read every article that pops up on general Google search. But is there any other specific, like GK Today, a lot of people rely on for their prep? And you
Hmm.
personally rely on GK Today or such other IES sources, or do you not recommend them at all?
I would like. I don't think I'm the best person to say don't rely on
Hmm.
GK Today or don't rely on IS sources. It's just that I personally never found them too appealing. And
Hmm.
I personally feel if I go to if I go to some, because I'm somebody who likes to read a string of thoughts, if that makes sense. I like to uh, do my study GK with context, and I think
Hmm.
these magazines sort of kill context.
Yeah.
And when you read articles, you have context, and when there's context, that helps you remember. So I won't say don't rely on these sources. I would just say, in my personal experience, I didn't, because they didn't really help me
Hmm.
retain stuff. But I did use coaching compendiums, even the
Hmm.
NLTI GK booster, as a sort of source for revision. So you can go
Hmm.
through these compendiums and then just
Yeah.
skim read them, see if there's anything that you don't know, and if there's something that you don't know, read up on that, use that as a revision point.
Right. And so, how many hours did you put in every day, or there was no such fixed number of hours? It was all about targets that you set for yourself and meeting those targets.
Honestly, I think that my preparation was very haphazard, so I didn't have targets, I didn't have a routine, I didn't have a fixed number of hours. I
Hmm.
just did what I wanted to do, and what I felt at that moment was necessary to do. I didn't really count the hours because I think CLAT is more a habit-based paper. So if I'm reading the newspaper every day, if I'm reading a random book, I'm watching random videos on YouTube, I won't really count that as studying. But that
Hmm.
does help me prepare for this exam, because again, this exam requires that you become a well-rounded individual. So it's not really
Hmm.
possible for me to count the hours, because for me, this paper was a habit-based paper, not a study-based paper. So it's more like, if I inculcate good habits, I won't need to worry about studying 8 hours, 10 hours, or whatever. It will just come naturally to me.
Yeah. Got it. So, section wise, there any strategy that this is your strength, this is your weakness. So, I will spend more time on this particular section, and even if I take this particular section a bit chill or light, I would be fine. So, what was
Hmm.
your approach to every section that comes in class?
So I think for me, quants and AI were the most challenging, you know,
Okay.
most challenging parts of
And
the paper.
from what I heard
So
from
my
Parg,
fine,
I think quants and AR were his strength, right? AR, I think, was his strength,
yeah,
is what I remember.
right,
Yeah.
right.
So how did you deal with it? Yeah.
So for that, I just spent the last leg of my preparation doing quants and AR.
Hmm.
Spending more time on quants and AR, because by then I feel that I'd practiced enough mocks that my reading and comprehension was more or less sorted. I felt like I could do anything when it comes to comprehension. tackle anything that they throw in my way. When it came to quants and AI, that was sort of a problem. So the last leg of my preparation, I
Mm,
devoted much of it to quants and AR. As for other
mm,
sections, I think when it came to practice, I would honestly just practice during mocks. So I would give 1 to 2 mock every week,
mm.
and that was my my source for my practice material for critical reasoning, English, legal reasoning, everything. And other than that, as I said, I would use my physical copy of the constitution because whenever I encounter a topic where I needed to know an article from the constitution, I would throw at it and educate it. Guess.
I think we lost Argh again. Don't worry, I think we'll be back in a couple of seconds.
Hello,
Yes, Argh, you are
hello.
audible now.
Right. So as I was saying, other than that, just read a lot for
Mm,
critical English, articles on contemporary legal issues, read editorials. It will all fall into place.
mm,
I kept a copy of the Indian Constitution with me, a physical copy.
mm,
That really helped me
mm.
with like the GK aspect of stuff, because whenever
Yeah.
I encountered a topic where I needed to know an article from the Constitution, I would
Mm,
uh, use my physical copy of the Constitution, because that helped me create a mental layout of the Constitution
yeah.
in terms of what part deals with what and what part is
Mm,
where. So even
yeah.
if I encounter something that I don't know and it's
Mm,
constitution related, I could throw at it an educated guess, because I have this layout in my mind. So
yeah.
using that layout, trying to apply that layout to the question, I could throw at it an educated guess. That really helped me with legal and GK.
Right. Arp, tell me how many mocks did you give in total? What was your average score that you were getting in mocks, and how did that translate into your final score in CLAT 2026?
I think I must have given more than 100 mocks over the course of 2 years. And I didn't really track, and my average percentage was well above 90. And as long as
Okay.
my percentile was well above 90, and as
Mm-hmm.
long as my percentage was well above 90 or above 95, and I felt like I had a decent rank, I think that helped reassure me, even if it was a bad mock, even if my score dipped in the mock, if my percentile was fine, then I didn't worry about it, because that just means that the mock was tough. So that's
Yeah.
something that I try to tell everybody. Don't track your scores, track your percentile, because your scores
Right.
would depend also on how the mock is structured, what's the level of the mock. But your percentile should not change with that.
Arp, do you remember your first mock score by any chance? I'm assuming you might not remember. It was 2 years back, April 24. But if there's any chance, you might give me a ballpark
I
figure.
think I think that it was in the 40s, if I'm not wrong,
Hmm.
somewhere in the 40s.
Right. Perv also mentioned, I think around 42 was his first mock score. So
Hmm.
maybe something similar to that.
Right.
But Arg, tell me more about your attempt strategy. So what was your attempt sequence in the mocks that you were giving? Which section you started with and then which go ahead. And also the time division for each section. If there was any particular time division that I will not spend more than, let's say, 35 minutes in
Hmm.
the legal reasoning section. And how did, if that changed in the CLAT paper because there was analytical reasoning, which you might not be very uh, comfortable about. So, did that change in the final paper? And if yes, by how? And what was the
Right.
final attempt strategy in the paper?
So, okay, in my mocks, what I would do, like by November, it was I would start with English, then I would go to GK, then I would attempt one passage from Quants, the passage that seemed easier, so I got it out of the way. After that, I would
Hmm.
do logical and legal. Sorry, legal followed by logical, and then I would
Hmm.
come to the second passage in Quants. And I used to ensure that I don't spend more than, like, say 20-25 minutes in English.
Hmm.
GK, I didn't really track my time, but it was usually 10 minutes, I think.
Hmm.
Legal would be somewhere between 25 to 30 minutes. Uh, And yeah, no wait, legal would be somewhere between 30 to 35 minutes rather.
25.
So legal is 30 to 35 minutes, sometimes 40 if it's too tough, if the mock is too tough, but generally not more than that. And then 20 to 25 minutes for logical, and I would try to ensure that I had more than 20 minutes left for quants, because again, quants was a weak area. So I would try
Yeah,
my best to ensure that I had more than 20 minutes for quants, like total, for both the passages.
right. And how did that change in the CLAT paper, if that did?
So in the paper, I did not follow any sequence at all. Like I did not follow like this preset sequence. I started with English, but because when I flipped through the paper, I realized that logical is not critical reasoning. It's analytical reasoning. So I think I did English followed by GK, and then I switched to logical reasoning because it was analytical. But the thing with analytical in the actual CLAT paper was I was actually very comfortable with that because it was very well designed. So it was genuinely
Hmm.
fun solving the analyticals that they asked in CLAT 2026 because it was more a puzzle. They didn't rely on
Yeah.
traditional topics, linear arrangements, circular arrangements, stuff like that. They came up with really novel puzzles. That was really fun. So I think I genuinely had fun doing analytical. I had
Hmm.
less time for legal. I think I had 25 minutes for legal. And if
Okay.
the legal reasoning section was what they usually threw at you, like, one with big passages and then big questions, cases, and everything, I would
Hmm.
have left some of my paper, but thankfully legal was not that lengthy and there was a lot of GK involved. So I managed to complete that in time, but there was a time crunch when it came to legal in the actual paper. I think I got lucky there.
Yeah. Fair. So, Arg, what do you think? Which is that one section that secretly made all the difference and made you get all India rank here?
I think it was across all sections. I don't think I've seen you know, enough of other people's scores to say कि मेरा कहाँ ज़्यादा अच्छा हुआ. I think it might have been AR because I did really well in AR. I got full in English. Sorry, full in GK. I think that really helped. So yeah,
Hmm.
might have been GK and AR.
Right, fair. GK के लिए Arg, tell me your strategy again. How did you divide your
Mhm.
time between static and current affairs? Did you specifically follow any book like people suggest you sent Arihant for static? Were you also
Mhm.
one of those people who did that book seriously? If not, how did you go about incorporating your static part within the current affairs research?
So for static, I would first of all do what people call the static of the current. So if I'm
Hmm.
reading about, let's say, the Israel-Palestine issue, I would try to go back and do static stuff related to that.
Hmm.
Other than that, I think for static, there's no one fixed strategy because there's no end to static GK. Static
Hmm.
GK can be anything and everything.
Yeah.
So I didn't really follow Arihant, Lucens and all. I used to quiz in my free time. So because I used to
Hmm.
quiz some static stuff, I had to, you know, read about out of compulsion. Other than that, I would again
Hmm.
read books. I would read Ramchandra Guha's this Makers of Modern India. I would read.
Hmm.
I read some of this ancient history, the ancient history book that R.S. Sharma publishes.
Yeah.
I read half of that.
Hmm.
And other than that, I just okay. So in the Hindu, there's this really interesting section when you look at text in context. At the bottom of the page, there's a quiz. Sometimes
Okay.
that really helps you.
Hmm.
That really helps you look at really interesting facts, important
Hmm.
static facts. So that was one of my sources for static. So it was really haphazard, honestly. I wouldn't say that I relied on one book. With static, it is more of a constant process of reading, learning.
Hmm. Right, fair. So once you started preparing seriously for CLAT, and that is post April last year, uh, what was your worst mock score that really shattered you, if there was one such mock? And what did you do after that? How did you cope with that? How did you focus on improving your strategy or improving your score and go upwards from there?
I think I got 69 on a mock, but
Hmm.
I was able to ensure that it doesn't shatter me because it was an exceptionally tough mock. I realized that I needed to build myself, in terms of capacity. Like, I need to build my composition in such a way that I'm able to handle tough mocks, because it's not like I had some conceptual difficulties with those mocks. It's just that I was so used to easier mock
Yeah.
tests that when they threw tougher mock tests at me, my scores and percentage started to
Hmm.
dip. That
Yeah.
this happened around July, August last year. And that's when, so I would constantly seek out like tougher sectionals, tougher mocks, practice more.
Hmm.
And gradually I started improving. One thing that I realized was when my score dipped, it usually dipped
Hmm.
because I was too stressed about the mock test. Too stressed about the fact कि इसमें अच्छा ही करना है वरना क्लैट में भी अच्छा नहीं होगा, something like that. So it's
Hmm.
important to realize that it's just an exam. CLAT is also just an entrance test, and it's
Yeah.
just a college. So when you have that realization within you, that solves a lot of your problems. Because if you have that realization and you have conceptual clarity, that really helps you ace the paper.
Right. There's a question in the chat box. Did you attend school or joined a dummy
Hmm.
school? And also, that brings me to one important question. How did you manage your school with CLAT prep? What did your average day look like when you went to school?
I so in 12th I did not go to school. I would go like once a week. I would
Hmm.
sometimes go to some competition, and because I went to a competition, that would act as proxy attendance. So just ensure ki I had talked to my school, like my vice principals and stuff, and I managed to ensure that they brought down the minimum attendance criteria to about 50%. So
Hmm.
I just ensured कि okay April May में चले जाता हूँ. June, July onwards, I'll start going like once or twice a week so that that criteria is maintained. But I don't have to go to school more than I have to. And when I used to go
Yeah.
to school, I would come home, sleep for a bit, read the newspaper, practice
Hmm.
soda bath, and then just wait for the wait for the next day because I was too tired.
Hmm.
And after September, I stopped going to school. October, November, May, because I think they counted attendance till October, so I stopped going to school.
Hmm. Okay. Right. Arg, was there any phase in your preparation where you genuinely felt कि रैंक 8 तो छोड़ो एनएलएस भी नहीं होगा एनएलएस भी छोड़ो टॉप 5 हो जाए तो बहुत बड़ी बात है कभी आया था
There
ऐसा
was a
फेज इन योर
phase.
प्रेप या
Yeah, there was a phase in my preparation when I thought कि top 5 हो जाए कैसे ना कैसे मैं खुश हो जाऊंगा. And then I realized कि okay चलो यही mentality लेके पेपर कर लेते ना. Like even before CLAT my mentality was top 5 हो जाए बस मैं खुश हो जाऊंगा.
या
If you don't have very great expectations out of the paper, again that helps you ace the paper. So if at any point you feel like मेरा नहीं होगा, set a target for yourself कि अच्छा मेरा इतना हो जाए मैं खुश हो जाऊंगा. And don't go to the paper with too many expectations. Again, if you realize that it's just a college and that it's just an entrance test, that really makes all the difference in terms of how to handle both the preparation and the actual paper.
राइट Arg, tell me this. So, a lot of mentors, a lot of teachers suggest that you stop uh, or you deactivate your Instagram account or you don't watch movies or series on Netflix. So, तुम्हारा क्या approach था with respect to social media or doing things that a particular uh, mentor or a person might look down upon when you're preparing for CLAT? So, what was your approach to having a social life, having a personal life, having doing things that might be unconventional when you're preparing for an entrance test? Instagram, Netflix,
Hmm,
or doing random stuff.
right. So I think it's important to realize CLAT is not the only thing in your life. So
Mm,
you need to have a way to vent and chill. So I did watch Netflix, I did watch movies, I did have social media because I knew ki uh, I know I know when to prioritize. So I know when I
mm,
need to study, I'll study, and when I need to chill, I'll chill. It's not like if I have Instagram on my phone, I'll
Hmm.
just keep on scrolling reels endlessly just because I have Instagram on my phone. That won't make a
Hmm.
difference. So if I'm not using my phone, if I'm not using social media, then I'm not using social media. So if you have
Hmm.
that maturity, then I don't think you really need to uninstall anything, or you know, you don't need to stop going out with your friends once in a while. I think you should go out with your friends once in a while, because
Yeah.
11th and 12th is when, like, your last, like the last years of your school life. So enjoy it. Go to your farewell, go to your contees, and chill with your friends,
Hmm.
celebrate their birthdays, celebrate your birthdays. Do everything that a teenager does, just do it in limit. Ensure that there's a balance, and that when you study, you study.
Hmm. Yeah. Argh, I have a quick rapid fire for you, and that is, I'll
Hmm.
ask a couple of questions, and you have to tell me uh, whether it's you or Parv who actually did that more. So, who cried more during prep? It's just one word answers, you or Parv.
I think it's me.
Who said I can't do this more? I can't do this anymore.
Probably me.
Who panicked more before a mock test?
Before a mock test, I think none of us.
Who panicked more generally during prep?
I think, okay, probably me.
Who had more meltdowns after a bad mock score?
Both of us, like when it went bad, equal level of
Hmm.
meltdown.
Right. Who, if any of you, who stress ate more?
Who?
Stress ate. Eating in stress,
Stress
eating under
8.
stress.
None
Yeah.
of us.
Who actually put in more hours every day?
Hmm. I think both of us, again, we didn't count our hours, so it's hard to say.
Hmm. Who gave more
I'll just say
mocks?
me for the sake of it. Who gave more mocks?
Who gave more mocks? Yeah.
I think we gave all our mocks together because that helps you
All
analyze.
the mocks.
Yeah, almost
That's
all.
actually
Like,
insane.
okay, not exactly together, but on the same day, so that when we checked our answer keys, we had somebody to cross check with. Because a lot of times the answer keys have irregularities, so it's better to
Hmm.
discuss with somebody who's
Yeah.
given that actual mock.
Who actually scored higher in mocks? If we take out an average.
I think perf.
Okay. Who do you think will be a better lawyer? You or Parth?
Me. Okay.
Right. I think that's it from this rapid fire. But Arg, tell me one non-negotiable that every CLAT 2027 aspirant should do. I I have heard a lot of reading that you need to read, you need to have a curious mind. But is
Hmm.
there anything specific that you did in your prep that you think helped you a lot in your prep and should be a non-negotiable or a very important thing that every CLAT 27 aspirant should do?
Newspapers. Again, newspapers
Hmm.
are absolutely non-negotiable when it comes to CLAT. And mock tests, obviously, but
Hmm.
newspapers more so than mock tests.
Right. So, if I were to ask you, which is one habit that every CLAT 27 aspirant must have, and that would be reading newspaper daily.
Hmm. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
You must have seen a lot of people around you. Some made it to NLS, some didn't make it to NLS. What do you think is the major differentiating factor between someone who actually makes it to NLS and somebody who put in a lot of effort but did not make it to NLS?
I think that's a very arbitrary metric to say that there's a
Hmm.
tangible difference between somebody who made it to an LS and somebody who didn't. I think it all boils down to that one. Sometimes it boils down to that one day. Sometimes it's more about who handles the paper better, who's better with exams in general. I
Hmm.
would say I notice a tangible difference between somebody who makes it to NLS and somebody who does not makes it made it like make it to NLS.
Hmm.
Except maybe sometimes there's a lack of focus, but again, I don't think there's any like
Hmm.
s- tangible difference between these two groups of people.
Yeah. Be honest, what is one very overrated? CLAT advice that you kept on hearing during your prep and you think that was absolutely bullshit or useless?
One is tracking your scores, because I
Hmm.
think that does not make sense logically even. If I track my scores, like there's this one
Hmm.
advice that goes around, "Okay, if you're scoring above 90, then that's a good
Hmm.
score. If you're scoring above 100, that's a good score."
Hmm.
Logically, that makes no sense because it's a percentile game. It's not a score game. It's not a percentage
Yeah.
game. So that's one thing.
Hmm.
Another thing is probably reading compendiums very regularly or relying on coaching material a lot. I think that's a little
Hmm.
overrated. If you can create a substitute for coaching material sometimes, uh,
Yeah.
through your own
I think this
efforts,
is
by
very
again being
specific to the
genuinely
GK
curious.
section particularly because I've
Hmm.
seen a lot of people
Huh.
getting complacent that I've done the compendiums very religiously. I know everything,
Exactly.
but compendiums
Hmm.
hardly cover 20% of what you're actually supposed to do. So this is actually one very overrated advice that even
Yeah.
I have heard around a lot that compendiums kar lo ho jayega. But yeah,
Hmm.
specifically for that, coaching material is never enough for GK, especially the compendiums.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think relying on dictionaries for vocab, that's very overrated. I think that's a very bad strategy, honestly.
Hmm.
If you're a voracious
Okay.
reader, then that
Hmm.
really helps you with vocab. But if you do it like a syllabus using dictionaries, using word
Hmm.
power made easy, that's a
Right.
little difficult because it's very hard for me to remember जैसे 10 वर्ड्स मैंने आज पढ़ ली, उनकी डेफिनेशंस
Hmm.
याद कर ली, बट वो 2-4 दिन में मैं भूल ही जाऊँगा।
Oh, no, right.
आई
Yeah.
थिंक vocab should be more contextual.
Right. And I had one question that I forgot to ask earlier. So, what is, according to
Hmm.
you, an ideal frequency of mocks in a week? And it can vary. You can tell me what is an ideal frequency right now in April, and what is an ideal
Hmm.
frequency 1 month before the exam. Let's say in November.
So I think in April, once a week, okay, if you're feeling adventurous, twice a week, but I think once a week should be enough.
Hmm.
By like August, September, October, you can expand it to twice a week. And I think by October, November, if you have nothing else to do, because I felt like by October, November, except GK, I had nothing else to do. So I
Hmm.
would give mocks fairly frequently, like thrice a week, sometimes 4 times a week.
Hmm.
And the week before CLAT, I gave no mocks whatsoever so that I don't fall into
Okay.
the pitfalls of mock test, because you get used to a mock test, and when CLAT throws a googly at you, you're not able to handle it, which is something
Hmm.
that could have happened in this year's paper. So I
Hmm.
didn't give any mock test in the week before CLAT, but
Hmm.
because in October, November, I had nothing else to do, so I just gave mock tests every second day.
Right. There's one more question in the chat option. So, what is
Hmm.
one thing that you did not do in your prep? But let's say if you were to
Hmm.
start over right now and prepare for CLAT 27, which is this one thing that you will do now that you didn't do earlier to maybe get a better rank?
I would say focus on quants and AR, because okay, maybe not to get a better rank, but because that really relieves some of your stress towards
Hmm.
the final months of preparation. Or if it's not quants and AR, whatever your weak sections are, try to sort them out early on.
Hmm.
That really helps you focus on other stuff, other more important stuff. That's something that I messed up.
Right. Thank you so much, Ark. I think that's it from this session. I personally found it very interesting and insightful. I hope everyone who joined in live have some takeaway from this session that you will be incorporating in your prep. Thank you, Ark, for joining in.
Thank
All the
you.
best for your journey, 5 years journey at NLS. And congratulations again on making it to NLS with such an impressive rank. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. That was it from this session. Next weekend, we will be back again with another topper who cracked CLAT 2026. And thank you for supporting us. And we hope you find this series, India's Got CLATent, helpful. Thank you and have a good night.
Hey, thank you.